Yeah,
Let's
it's an
just take
interesting one.
a quick little detour here and talk about what excellence means to you in the church. So, as far as music goes, so whether that means to your heart or spirit or ability to play your instrument, what does that mean to you, and how important do you think it is?
It's radically important. The main thing that happens is, so I've got a lot of my hand in a lot of different things and a lot of different fires that are, that are like a lot of irons in different fires of what I do to make a living. So I've got 5 or 6 things that I do to make a living, and some of them get nurtured more than others. And there's one angle. One of the things that I do is I've got a band called the Worship Republic with a couple of friend of mine, and we've developed a really poor culture of creating new material for ourselves. So we've recorded, I did a hymns record a while ago, and then we've done, but we actually get together to write, and then we end up just goofing off and then go home, and we go and play these gigs, and we get paid well to do them, to lead worship for these big corporate things, and we do those, and they go well, and we always think, man, if we really just got this thing going a bit more, we could actually do a lot more, and there's a lot of eyes on us. We could write one worship song and do really well, if we did something. And then, but the culture that we've developed over the last 6 or 8 years has actually created, when we know we're going to get together, we know we're not going to do anything significantly. And it's just because of our culture. And I'm bringing that up to uncovering my bad egg there in a way, just to bring kind of the idea back to church, is that some churches have got such a bad culture of professionalism that it's like, how do you break that cycle? Because everybody knows that everybody's going to be late, for example. So no one shows up on time to worship practice. Everybody knows that no one's going to learn the songs like they are on the record. So no one learns the songs on the record. And so there's these really bad culture that's been developed. And one guy will go, come on, guys, we can do better. And then he'll go on like a rant, and everyone goes, yeah, cool. But then within 2 weeks, it's back to normal again. So, it's very hard to break the culture of, and with Worship Artistry, we do a podcast, and we always get the same questions kind of like, how do we get the guys in the church to practice properly, and how do we get the guys? And so it's and that's not to say that you get a whole new worship team, but you have to go, let's take this from a totally different angle. Let's forget about the music for a while. Let's get together and pray together, or let's get together and listen to worship music, or let's get together and do something. So just totally change direction and say, it's not working if we just try and ramp up our desire to play together. Let's do something else where we can feel like something will come out of that. And maybe, if you're already goof off a lot, then don't go and have hamburgers together every day thinking it's going to help you guys to actually get better at it. You've got to find the weakness of your band or whatever it is, and go, none of us practice at home on our own. What are we going to do to do this? And then you've got to either for each other and say, hey, let's try and learn this one song exactly like the record. So right now with this Corona stuff, people can sign up for a free account, and it's all open for free. They can use it for free right now. So you can go in and sign up, and so it's and eventually it'll be charged again. It's like Netflix. I think it's about $6 or $7. So 2,000 rand a month. I'm just kidding.
20,000.
Yeah, 20,000 rand a month. No, it's about the same price as Netflix, and so people are able to. And then people, you can say that, the drummer, the keyboard player, everybody goes and takes that one song and say, you have to learn this exactly like a record. Everyone's going to do it. Yeah. And you commit to learning, and you take baby steps. But eventually, when you realize how good it sounds when everybody practiced and everybody got it right, and how the church felt like, wow, you guys really nailed that song. That felt so different from normal. What did you guys do? And then I think you have to breed a new culture. And the only way to do that is to get excited about it. It's the same as practicing individually. There's ways to get yourself psyched up to practice, but most people don't like practice. Some people are nerds and they love it. And the thing is, nobody's having fun when the band's jamming, except for the band. And so then jam and band practice. Once you've practiced all the songs, have a fun jam, but don't make that Sunday morning. That's just going to be, most people, it's already a big ask to ask someone to come at that time of the morning who's not a musician and expect you to have your rock music in their face for half an hour. And that's a big ask for people. You got to do what you can to try and bridge that gap of people wanting to connect in worship and sing. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of those guys are working, you know, as an accountant all week long, and then they will show up and there's suddenly a rock band in front of them at 7 a.m. And so you've got to work out how do we serve these people that are coming to meet with Jesus. That's the primary goal. And if you can get that right, instead of how do we actually make a really cool rock band, because that's not what people need.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because a lot of people go, yeah, well, we have to try and reach the youth, you know, and there's this emphasis on like reaching the young people. And so they push the pastor the whole time to try and be like, it's all about that. Meanwhile, it's just they just want to rock out there. And the problem is then you lose all the old people. I was in the gym the other day, years ago, and this lady was talking about,
years ago.
yeah, I was reading a book, and I was in the quiet section of the gym where all the old people come and sit, and it's all sitting with all her old friends. And she says, "You still go to church, Mabel?" And she said, "No way." She says, "I won't go back there." She says, "Why?" She says, "The music." So then I apologize. This is probably a swear word in South Africa, but in America, it's not the word crap. Anyway, so the lady goes, "What's wrong with the music?" She says, "Crap is what it is." And I was like just cracking up in my mind. And then she said, "What's wrong with it?" She said, "The kid is so loud up there." And he said he doesn't communicate with them at all. He plays so loud that no one can hear themselves sing except hear him bleating over the speakers. Now, who knows? It might even be tame compared to but for her. And so she doesn't go to church anymore. And I go, the people that are closest to eternity are leaving church. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just you don't want that to be happening for people. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people that are closest to eternity are being turned off because of the vibe of the band who's trying to be a rock band, and who knows how many young people they actually are reaching. So it's just all.
So instead of serving,
people's
it become a. Well, I guess I mean it's that whole thing of finding that, like you say, finding that that middle ground between serving the people. Well, I guess there's no middle ground. That's what it is. It's serving the people, you know. And I think being able to serve all the people, the young and the old, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so let me put a curveball question in. So I did kind of touch on this in the beginning. So I'm just going to put it to you straight like this: the relationship between the creative and the church. How do you where is it? Where do you think it is, and why do you think it is where it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's some of what I was talking about a little bit earlier on was, you know, when the pastor sees creatives as people that are like goofy, or they're not, like, a lot of corporate pastors are very corporate. So they're very much are like big CEOs of big companies who've got it all together. They spend a lot of time in the Word. They spend a lot of time crafting their messages. So they're almost like a big, like CEO of a company that has to do a keynote speech every week to his bunch of employees. And then the guys that are musos or creative people look to them like really weird people. Like, who are these people? Then do we really even need them in our church? Because they just cause trouble, because they're the weird people. And so if the pastor feels that way about creative people to start with, and they're never reliable because they're always late, or they whatever it is that he sees them as, they've got long hair or they dress funny or whatever, it kind of can put a mark almost on what he's trying to build as a corporation. And so sometimes I've seen churches where they just hurt the creative so badly that they just never come back. And then I've seen churches like Hillsong where you've got a lot of creative people, or Bethel, where there's like the most creative people are all going to Bethel because they know they're going to be looked after there. And if you're creative and you've got a great voice and you're a good songwriter, you go to Bethel, they will find a way to help, to use you to keep doing what they do, and you'll feel looked after for the most part. And as much as a big church can look after people. But that's what I feel like. I feel like it all comes down to how whether the church feels valued. And then the other side of it is, it also comes down to the motivation of those people in their art, seeing, is church the outlet for them creatively? Because just because they're creative doesn't mean that church is the creative outlet that they should be using.
Sure.
And if they've got that in their mind, that unless the church uses them to paint murals on the front of the church, then they're not being valued, and their gift is not valued. But the reality is, maybe that's not where you're supposed to be. Maybe the church doesn't need life-size pictures of Jesus hanging, all over the whole church, or whatever the art is that the artist wants to do. And so I think finding understanding that your main value as an artist might be outside of the walls of the church, or in it's for sake of a better word, like in the real world almost of arts. It's not a bad thing. I've got some great friends that have done amazing things in the real world of arts, because a lot of stuff has to be dumbed down. Even in the Christian music industry in Nashville, if you listen to Christian radio, it's what it is. I'm not a huge fan of what most of the stuff that gets put out on Christian radio. It's hard for me to listen to it as a creatively, because of what I think, because of what else is out there in the world.
So why do you think the church hasn't managed to hold on to those people? In other words, although it's not their place, but they're not really affiliated to Christianity. They'd prefer not to be. A lot of bands that are so-called Christian bands, but they prefer to. So why do you think the reason for that is?
So there's two sides to it. One of them is from the church's side, if they are, imagine if you're having a Christmas dinner and you want to impress all your wife's family are coming over, and you want to impress them, and then you've got a little brother that's like the goth in the family, and he sits around with a long face, and he just wants to, with a lip ring, and he's parking off in the corner with black eyeshadow on. You feel like a little bit embarrassed that the oak's there, and you're trying to explain to your wife's family, hey, he's actually a good kid, but that's his vibe. And so a lot of pastors almost see like this, can see creatives to some degree as ruining the kind of starchy church model that they want to build. And I know there's lots of corporate churches that have got a look that they want to try and portray of everything, and a vibe. And in the same way, it can come from the other angle as well. There's some of these edgy churches that are all about worship that don't really want the nerdy guys to show up, because then it's like they don't have diesel jeans on, and they're ruining the vibe. And I mean, that's just weird, but it's just immature, and it can come from both sides, so that's why I think a lot of churches that are very corporate, they feel like the creatives are almost like a stone in their shoe to some degree.
Yeah, that's
my opinion. I might be completely wrong on that, but and then the other side of it is some, like, let's just take Kanye West for example. He's just become a believer, right? And he's done this big worship gospel kind of record. So every church on earth realizes the value that if they could just get Kanye to come lead worship on Sunday, and their church will be packed to the brim, and they'll get a whole lot of new tithers and people that can join their church and be part of their world. And so Kanye, so Kanye, I think after a while will start to feel like, yes, these guys just want to use me because of my platform or because of my gift. And so some of the bands want to disassociate with church because the church is trying to, like, even when we were with Tree, I was actually in a situation once where we went to a church where we played, and the pastor basically stuck us on for a few songs, and then he ran up on stage. People had come to see a concert, they'd come to see the band, and at that stage in South Africa, Tree was more like a mainstream band because we'd had so many pop songs on the radio, songs that had kind of done really well on mainstream radio. So there were a lot of Jewish people and Muslim people, and they all came to this church venue to come see us play. And when they were all in there, the church was so full of people. There was thousands and thousands of people in there that the pastor just looked at it as like his mission field. And he was like, this is my opportunity. This is what I was made for. So he stopped us after the fourth song and started doing a massive altar call and just like going crazy, and all of us were like, what is going on? And people were trying to leave, and he was like, don't leave. And it was just weird. And I know that in his own excitement and his own zeal for the Lord, he was like, this is an amazing opportunity for me to reach these people with the gospel. And you know, but the reality was they wanted to hear our band play. And there was a lot of gospel there's a lot of gospel, good news inside of our lyrics of our songs, which, you know, and we always would end with like Amazing Grace. So they would walk out of there with, hey, something happened there tonight that was bigger than music. Maybe it wouldn't be like the altar call with 10 people, you know, 100 people crying in the front, but it's just a weird thing. And so I think creatives are nervous that they're getting used a lot of the time. Even individual creatives within a church, they get seen as like, hey, we can get people to come if we just get this guy to do what he does well, and then we can just chuck him to the side, and then we'll do what we're trying to do. So I don't know. I might be off on this stuff. That, you know, this is all my opinion. You need to talk to 10 other people and say, what do you guys think? And then they'll go, well, geez, it seemed like Daniel was really off on those 7 points he talked about. But this is what I feel like I've seen a lot of over the years.
I suppose it's all culture, you know, is that, like you say, I mean, the culture of the church should be Jesus, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're modeling, you know.
Yeah.
And I suppose, you know, there's always going to be that side of, you know, different strokes for different folks, you know, like Bikers Church, for instance, you know, ministers to bikers, you know, but the culture should be Jesus, you know. It doesn't matter if you drive a scooter, okay, or a Harley, you know, you still allow, you know, you can still come and call, you know.
Totally.
It's that whole thing, just culture. Why has the church culture become more about, and it's become almost less about Jesus and more about, like you say, all these other things, you know. I'm talking with creative now, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember it's a lot of it's just immaturity. You know, I saw a church that had a worship leader that was really young and cutting edge, and then they had an older guy that was really good musician, but he used to sing all the old Hillsong stuff, right? And he would lead, and for a long time the church grew really well, and it was awesome. And then, you know, that Delirious came out with all that cutting edge music. And then
the cutting edge band. It's a cutting edge.
Yeah, cutting edge. And they basically, it was just the prequel to Delirious. And they wrote all these songs. Can You Hear the Mountains Tremble? All these songs that were kind of like U2 sounding almost. And Matt Redman stuff started coming out then as well. Must have been, I was about 25, it was somewhere about there. It was 90.
No, this is 2000, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, somewhere around about there. Yeah, that's right. Somewhere around there. And what happened was the guy that was the worship leader that sang like Martin Smith, and he was really good, talented kid. A lot of young people started coming to that church because of this new move of worship, which was all that stuff. And then it was too edgy for some of the older guys that really liked the Hillsong stuff that the other guy would do. So then during the service, whenever he would lead worship, the young guy, the older people would sit down and go, this is nonsense. Why are these guys so excited about this weird sound? And then as soon as the other guy would play, the kids would either not come to church or they would leave, or else if they did stay in church, they'd just sit and look at him as like, wow, this is so lame. Why doesn't he just play Delirious songs? And so it's like childish. It's not about that, but for some reason that nearly caused the whole church to split, and like it just was a whole massive mess. And it's just, I guess, all back down to why do we go and why do we actually show up there and what are we there for? Because, you know, if you're there to be like, it's not Netflix church, you know, you're not trying to find the best show and then go and watch that. You're actually trying to contribute to a community, and that's messy. It's like family. It's like watching your little kid do his new violin. My son plays violin, and he's just learning, and so I have to sit through some of his violin playing, and like he's getting better and better. But you know, initially it's messy, and you just say, "Well done, bud," and you're getting better. And that's what church should be like. It should be allowing people to grow, encouraging people to grow, and then even as players, it's hard when you've been playing music for your whole life. Like I've been playing my whole life, and when I get to church and there's a really bad guitar player or really not a great drummer, especially as a bass player, I go, oh, it's this drummer. I have to actually go, I'm going to still serve God in this moment, and just because it's not about that. And usually the way I feel like I'm talking about at this new church, it wouldn't bother me. Well, I'm in Nashville, so everyone's really good. But there's some that are better than others, you know. But because I feel like I'm being nurtured by the church leadership, I'll let lots more go under the bridge of what my personal preferences are, because I feel like I'm there I'm being looked after outside of that environment, and it really gives me a lot more grace for everything within the actual worship environment. And I think that's the key, man. Is finding how do you actually nurture your volunteers really, really well. And people always ask us at these worship conferences, they say, how do I get my drummer to play softer? And I say, you take him to lunch and ask him how his day is going. And they're like, what? They're expecting me to say, give him these hot rods or these brushes and tell him, yeah. But it's all about, what's that?
Give him some toothpicks.
Yeah. The reality is, if you can imbue your own understanding of what your church needs to have as your worship leader, and if you're the guy that God's given the kind of vision to for you, what kind of worship your church is going to have, then the only way you're really going to get your team to play along is if they want to, you know. And so, like, if my kids are doing the chores and the stuff that I've got for them around the house to do because they want to please me, it's so much more of a peaceful vibe than if they know that I'm going to just spank them if they don't do it, you know. I get the same thing done. I mean, they'll still end up doing their chores, but bottom line is, you want people to come out of the motivation of, I love you, I know you love me, I want to do this because it's a blessing to you. Yeah. And it doesn't always work, but because, like you said, it's family. But for the most part, I think if people are willing to nurture their team and look after the guys, then when they say, hey, bud, can you just tone it down a little bit? It's really loud. The guy will be like, absolutely, I'll do anything for you. I know you care about me. And the reason you're telling me to turn down is because it's best for me. It's not just best for the pastor's wife or just for the tithers, you know, whatever it is that these funny little jokes we have about why people have to turn down the drums. But the truth is, if you have a healthy relationship with your team, then they're going to want to please you, and they're going to want to make the thing as good as it can be. And you might have some that are more strong-willed, but the bottom line is, if you look after people, they're going to want to do the right thing. It takes effort. It takes effort to make it work like that.
It goes much further than Sunday morning, right?
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes people have such limited time. That's why I was talking about as well the culture of what you've got as a team. Like, you're practicing hours, and when you're going to do this, it's just really, some people just seems like they don't ever have enough time. And I've been to worship practices in churches where they practice the whole set through twice, and it's very boring, and the band is not great, and they just play through these songs over again, and then they eventually leave and say, see you next week, see you on Sunday. And I'm like, guys, that's just, if you like, so I say, don't waste all your time doing that. Rather work out, what are you going to say in between the songs as a worship? How's your transitions going to be? And then and then make sure you can start the song really, really well, and how are you going to end the song. So you practice the intros and outros, and you practice what goes on in between. Now all of a sudden you've got a whole lot more time. And if the bridge is a weird, tricky bridge, then practice the bridge for all, if you have to. But for the most part, you can actually, if people know the songs, you can just make sure that you're just putting the glue together where it needs to go, so that the set's going to be lacquer at the end of the week. And then you can spend the rest of the time looking after each other and trying things out, or whatever, just making worship practice fun and making people feel encouraged, and allowing people to grow and giving them grace to grow. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's pretty much the end of it. I think, do you have any last words for guys that are getting into worship now and culture changes to usher in this new generation, I guess, of worshipers? Do you have any words for them?
Yeah, I feel like for worship leaders or worship pastors, if you've been hired to be the main guy at your church, or if you're a young guy and then you're starting the youth church worship band, your relationship with the pastor and trying to carry his vision through into the music and the worship is going to make him more excited about you being part of what he's doing. So it goes down to like, have a great relationship with your leadership so that they know that you're an extension of what they're trying to do, instead of like you're a new thing that's trying to happen and now they've got to kind of work around you. So if your relationship with them is great, and then carry that vision to your band and look after the guys as best you can, and I believe you can have a real impact, and you can develop that understanding. Your pastor can develop that understanding of what value you bring to the table, and then you guys will have more time, you'll have more resources. You know, if you need a new sound desk or you need whatever you need, you can get more resources and time from the pastor to actually grow what you guys are doing, and it gives you more room, rather than being like at odds with the pastor and then still trying to get up there on Sunday and make it work. And then for the young musicians, I feel like a lot of people ask us, I get so terrified when I have to get up there and play. And I can play fine when I'm playing at home on my own, or if I'm playing in the worship practice, but as soon as I'm on stage, I'm terrified. The bottom line is most people are not really even looking at you, honestly. They're looking at the worship leader most of the time, and if you make a mistake, there's probably 90% of those people in the crowd that don't even hear it because they don't have an ear for music. So don't panic about stuff. Just get up there, be brave, learn the song as best that you can, and then especially try and play simpler than you would play at 70% of your capacity as a player, rather than trying to pull stuff off at 110%. Because that's where you fall apart. And then once you've kind of like failed at pulling off a big riff or something, then you feel like scum for the rest of the whole time. And I've been there before myself, where if the first song sucks, then the whole worship set sucks from then onwards. I can never gather myself back together again to actually feel like I can feel good about it. So go easy on the first couple of songs, and when you feel confident, then just keep building your playing, and don't overplay. Learn the songs as best you can, like the record. For the most part with worship artistry, 90% of the songs on our site are so easy to play. And it's not because Chris Tomlin's bass player can't play tricky stuff. It's just because that's not what the song called for. And so if you want the song to sound as good as it can sound, it's usually going to be quite a simple part. And so learn your parts really well, and then kind of serve each other as best you can. That's I feel like the key is.
Do you want to just quickly just tell us about worship artistry? You've mentioned it, but just explain more what it is and where people can find it.
Yeah, so worshipartistry.com. It's a resource for worship musicians to learn to play the songs like the record, pretty much. Like the songs that, like if it's Elevation, it's going to be pretty much exactly like the parts that were played on those songs. Some of the bands are really improvisational, especially on the bass. So I'll kind of create more party parts for them, rather than teaching them every single little doodly note. But for the most part, you're going to play it exactly like the record. So there's drums, bass, piano, and vocals, and the guitar, electric and acoustic. And you can sign up for a free account, and I think you get through. Normally, when it's not like this COVID story, you can get 3 songs before you need to actually sign up and get a paid account. Excuse me. But right now, you can actually go in and play and do it. It's free for everybody for the next couple of months. I don't know how long it'll last.
Cool.
But it's a really cool resource.
So I guess in closing, it's all relational, everything. I guess, like you said, we can bring it all back to that then, the mega church, the big church, the small church, the worship team that doesn't, everything. It just boils down to honoring, respect one another. I guess the main command, is love one another, like I love you, or love, you know what I mean? It's pretty much what it comes down to. And I suppose with that comes the respect and the honor and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think the key as well, like you said, is actually understanding your own motivation first and foremost, and say, why do I really want to be up there? Is it because I'm trying to find a wife, or is it because I'm trying to? So if you can uncover your own motivations and be honest about them, at least be honest about them and say, this is the reason I'm doing it, and then am I going to be able to have those needs met through this worship situation without trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Is this going to work for the church and for me? And if not, then rather go find someone else to play with.
Yeah.
You know, but if you feel like, you know, if you feel like you're going to grow and you feel like it's an opportunity for you to be connected to other people, which is a great thing, and it's going to help you in your walk with God and all those things, you know, then go for it. I feel the other thing as well is to always keep your, like my dad used to say, you put a thermometer in your heart and see how hot your heart is. And if you feel like being a part of your worship team is negatively impacting your relationship with God, I'd say get out. Go and do something else. Go sit in church rather and be part of the congregation, or find somewhere where you're going to feel like you're growing. And because a lot of people get to that point where they just burn out, and then what's the use of that? No one needs that. Like, you know, my thing is church is not perfect. It's like you've got to think of church as a relationship of a lot of people trying to have a relationship with each other. And so just like a marriage, you've got to put an effort in with your wife. Otherwise, eventually no matter how much you like the same sport or whatever, you're going to end up divorced, you know, because you have to put in the effort. And so take a whole bunch of people and throw them all together. So now you all have to have a relationship with each other. It's not straightforward. So church is messy, and it's never going to look perfect. But at the end of the day, it at least has to be more than 50% good for you. If it's actually negatively impacting you, then I'd rather say go do something else. Because if you feel like you're constantly being abused and you can't be heard, and you're never getting an opportunity to be, and you've tried your best and you've done everything you can, and you've brought in other people and said, can you help me to try and navigate this? And they've tried and they still haven't succeeded, then rather go do something else. It's not worth it. It's not worth spending, you know, the rest of your life as an atheist because of how badly you were burned out by church. And there's so many people that I know that feel that way. And some of them did get hurt. Some of them did get burned. And it's not even usually the musos. It's the guys that actually are the sound mix guys, or the guys that do the lyrics, or because church leadership can often see those guys as technology. They don't even see them as human beings, because I got this guy and I've got this big sound system. It's supposed to work. What's wrong? So it's almost like imagining the iPad didn't work and then throwing it across the room and smashing the screen. That's what they do with their tech people, because they believe that tech is tech. They don't think of them as, hey, this is actually a human being. They don't even say hi to the guy behind the board sometimes, because it's usually someone who's quite nerdy or quiet, or so they're, you know, as band members, we get a little bit more spotlight, so we kind of have a relationship with the pastor. But that's the only thing I can say to pastors and worship teams. Look after your tech guys. Those guys are the ones you don't want to see them at the end of their lives not wanting to know anything about Jesus or people, because they've so badly. And I've got buddies that are from some of the biggest churches in the States here that don't even go to church anymore, and they're still involved in tech because they're so good at it. So they do these giant events, but they hate the church. They don't want to know anybody. And so you really have to spend a lot of time trying to let them believe that you actually do love them and care for them, because they've spent so many years being told that they have no value other than what they bring as a tech. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Sorry, I jumped on a whole another thing at the end.
No, it's all good stuff. I think, you know, like I said, just having these discussions, you know, with people that have done it, you know, I mean, like I said, you've been there for many years, you know, yeah. So it's just, you know, experience, you know, just that experience and what you've kind of picked up along the way, and etc. And you surf and you fish,
yeah.
Even, you know.
What's that?
I say, and you surf and you fish. Catch fish.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is, I think I'd much rather go fishing and surfing than play in a band. And I think that's some of it's actually it's interesting, because I don't have a lot of my self-worth wrapped up in the fact that I'm a musician, honestly.
Yeah,
if I did something else for a living, it wouldn't bother me. So you also got to see that thing is like, how much does your self-worth wrapped up in the fact that you play music or sing? Because if it is, then it's very easy to put your nose out of joint if you get told, hey, you're too loud, or hey, you didn't sing really well today. So because then it's basically, it's going to the core of who you are as a human being. It's not just like, hey, you sang an off note. It's like, you're a failure because that's your main thing and you didn't do it well.
Yeah.
You know. So do it as well as you can. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you, bro, for what you're doing. I believe in what you're doing. I think it's really, really cool. And the final note for me really is, don't try and feel like you have to always be like the guys that are coming out of the top of the food pile. Like in America, all the guys, like you look over here and go, these guys, we have to be like that. God's given you a unique thing, and what you've got is different, and it's beautiful, and you don't have to feel like you have to copy, Australia or America, and it's only going to be right if you can do it like those guys. That's not the truth at all. Be the best you that you can be on stage and as a team, and you'll be amazing, instead of just being a poor man's Chris Tomlin. Just be yourself, and write, whether you write songs or don't write songs, don't put any pressure on yourselves to be anything other than what God's made you to be.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate it, bro. I'm looking forward to seeing the fruit of what you guys are doing there.
Yeah.